Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is New York City Councilwoman Vickie Paladino. Councilwoman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me on. It's an honor. Thank you very much.
Of course, as you know, New York City and the state of New York in general has been dealing with an influx of migrants over the past almost year now. And New York City Mayor Eric Adams said that this could cost the city, if nothing changes, in the next 3 years, $12 billion. You hear that number, what's your reaction?
It's astounding. It's absolutely ridiculous that we're being left to shoulder this burden of the influx that's just pouring in hundreds by day, sometimes a couple of thousand a week. They just keep coming. So for us to shoulder this burden, I say enough is enough. We've done our fair share. I say just cut it off. Absolutely cut it off.
Where is this money coming from? I think that's everyone's first question. When you hear $12 billion, you think, I can't even wrap my head around that number. So where's the money coming from?
The taxpayers. For this budget that we just completed June 30th, which went into effect July 1, our budget goes from July 1 to June 30th. So in this new budget, we allotted $4.4 billion. So the math is easy. Take 4, times it by 3, and what do you get? You get $12 billion. So that's where the money is coming from. It's coming from the taxpayers.
And you represent the District 19, which encompasses Northeast Queens. So can you tell us a little bit about that district and how this crisis is impacting your community?
My District 19 is Northeast Queens. I run West College Point and as far east as Little Neck Douglaston, which is approximately 500 feet from the Nassau County border, for those who are familiar. I am on one side completely waterlined by the Long Island Sound. How has it impacted my district? Tremendously. I have got, in my district at present, I have a shelter that's in Bayside. It's for families. It's housing 133 people. Then I have what just opened, which was actually 3 weeks ago today, Friday. They started to bus them in to College Point, a small area of my district. That's the most west part of my district. Very small community, extremely small community. And what they did was they put in a respite center. What's a respite center? A respite center is a rest stop. It's where the migrants come in, they stay for a while, and they go. At present, I have got 300 adult male and females occupying what used to be formerly known as St. Agnes High School. Now that school was designated to start, it's in the planning process, to become the first New York City high school in my district in decades. It is so needed by the people to get a high school here. So now I have 300 male and females, adults, all over this very small town. Transportation desert. Now I figured when I was told on that Wednesday, which was just yesterday, I was told at 8 o'clock in the morning that this is what was coming to St. Agnes. As a city councilwoman or member, you have no prior notice. They drop it on you like a bomb. You get a call, you get a text, they tell you where, they tell you when. It's usually less than 24 to 48 hours. That's your window. My shelter, I only had 6 hours notice. So with this was a tremendous blow to College Point. I have got people now flowing all over the boulevard, which is their shopping district. I've got a senior center directly across the street. I've got a middle school, which is opening in 10 days. I have a middle school opening. I have an elementary school, and then they are all over, walking, sleeping, drinking, smoking pot on people's steps. It has been disgusting, actually, quite disgusting, that the people of this district or any part of the city that has any respect for where they live and take pride in their neighborhood, that they are being trampled on. And I'm using the word trampled because this is not the way I wanted to see it go. This is not people necessarily seeking the American dream. These are people looking for handouts. They beg, they go to different shopping centers, they wander into different parts of my district. Because if you could walk across the border, you could walk into the neighboring town, it's nothing. Okay, so I have them coming into Whitestone. I have them coming into Malva. I have the, like I said, they're sleeping in people's backyards. Another thing, I had my sanitation workers change their timing. They were originally coming twice a week. They have now agreed to make a special garbage pickup every day in front of the respite center. And do you want to know what they're finding? They are finding the food that we pay for with our tax dollars. They get 3 square meals a day, and they get snacks all day long. My sanitation workers have informed me, Vickie, you're not going to believe what's in the garbage. It's food, which is now drawing rats. So you ask me how we're doing? It's horrific. Absolutely horrific.
You're saying you only got short notice here that the migrants were being dropped off in these respite centers. You're saying this isn't the way you wanted to see it go. What is A, the way you would want to see it go? And B, what do you think of city leadership, specifically Mayor Eric Adams? How do you think he's handling this?
Okay. Eric Adams originally, some time back, said this was okay. Now, how does he feel about it today? Very different. Did we expect to see the onslaught that we've gotten? Did we expect to see every vacant building used? We have 107,000, that we know of, 107,000 migrants right now in this city. I think he regrets saying that this is okay. However, I'm not Eric Adams. I can't speak for Eric Adams. How has he handled it? He's handled it the best way he could at this, all along. He's done the best he could. But now he needs to say, enough is enough. We don't want any more. We've had it. We're done. And that's the beef he had with the governor this week. You saw it in a news conference that he did, where he said, we've had enough. Because the governor doesn't want any of these migrants upstate. She said it point on, looking at the camera. She said, no, you may not bring this upstate New York. This is New York City's problem. Well, finally, the mayor said to her, no, it's not just New York City's problem. She's the governor. Okay, now did you ever hear the expression, a snake? How do you kill a snake? You don't cut its tail off, it'll grow another tail. You want to cut its head off, you cut the snake's head. You want the snake to die, you cut the snake's head off. She's the head of the state of New York. She could stop this. She could say, no more, we've had enough. But she will not do that. So if you're not going to do that, Hochul, then Hochul needs to take these migrants, and Eric Adams needs to ship these migrants to the blue counties upstate. Let's start with her Buffalo Bills stadium. We're busy building 10 cities down here in Queens. We got 1,000-bed 10 city in Creedmoor, which is a stone's throw from where I'm sitting right now. 1,000 men, single men, roaming the streets of a very residential area. And if I've got 300 in a respite center, can you imagine what they're going through in that area of Queens, the Belrose, Glen Oaks section of Queens? It must be a horror show. Yet, any Democrat that's in office right now, thinks this is okay. And this is where the Republicans will split with the Democrats, because they say it's okay. What they're saying is maybe not here, maybe someplace else. But they're not saying stop the buses. Not one Democrat is saying stop the buses. The Republicans in Staten Island don't want the buses. This is the difference between Republican leadership and the Democrat leadership. The Republicans are saying we've had enough. Stop. We know that the border under Biden is not going to be closed. We know that. So it's up to the individual states to say, stop, we've had enough. And our leadership has failed us at every level. Our leadership has failed us. Our Democratic leadership has failed us. They are so sure and so positive that they're going to get reelected. They toe the party line. And that should be stopped immediately. There are some that have said, no, I have had enough, we've had enough, but they're too few to count and they're not nearly loud enough. So what do we do?
Let's talk about what do we do, because what you're describing really seems like this blame game, a game of hot potato. We're seeing Mayor Eric Adams blame Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. We're seeing Governor Hochul criticize the Biden administration. We're seeing the Biden administration place the blame on Congress. And we're seeing Republicans and Democrats in Congress really at an impasse on this issue. They're saying, yes, there is a problem at the border. We can't come to an agreement on how to solve it. So first, where do you think the blame lies here? And second, how do we fix this at a federal level?
How do we fix this at a federal level? Vote differently in 24, because then you'll have a wall with a door on it, so that people could come in the right way. When I speak to, College Point is made up of a great deal of minorities, okay? They came here the right way. I spoke to one woman from Ecuador and another person from Colombia. They came here the right way, and they are waiting for their sisters, aunts, and uncles to come here. 5 years they're waiting to come in the right way. I told them, fly to Mexico. Tell your family to fly to Mexico and walk across the border. You'll have them at your dinner table by Sunday. Now that sounds pretty awful, doesn't it? But that's a fact. There is absolutely no way this is changing unless the leadership changes at every level. Joaquin Jeffries is the minority leader. He lives in Brooklyn. He's from Brooklyn. Why aren't we hearing more out of Joaquin? Why isn't he saying, enough, this is my city, I love it? Why isn't he taking his voice into Congress and saying what needs to be said? Why isn't he doing that? Why? We have a breakdown here. The breakdown is ending up to be a Democrat and a Republican issue. That's what it's all about right now. Because when you've got I'm only one of two Republicans here in the borough of Queens. It's me, Vickie Paladino, Councilwoman for District 19, and it's Joanne Ariola on the south side of Queens in District 32. Two Republicans, that's all we have here. So in the entire borough of 2.3 million people. So we don't have a voice that would carry. Okay, so Hakeem Jeffries really should step up to the plate a little bit too, give support to the mayor that he needs to really stop this. It's not going to stop. Everybody, there's no end game. This is not going to end.
So you're saying the only solution that you see, the end game here, would be different leadership top down, and you're talking about changing the party from Democrat to Republican leadership.
Correct. Because if Lee Zeldin was sitting in the governor's chair right now, or Andrew Giuliani, who ran for governor, if one of those two men would have won with Allison Esposito as the lieutenant governor, if we would have seen change in government once again at the head, this would not be happening in New York State. It would be over. It would be done.
As you know, New York City is a sanctuary city. New York State is a sanctuary state. So I'm wondering, what do you think the limiting principle of sanctuary policy should be?
Well, first of all, it goes on. Executive power goes on for way too long. That's the first thing. Sanctuary city, when it was started back in the 80s, was started in a very pure form. And, I was never in favor of sanctuary city at all, but I kind of got it. I kind of understood it. But nobody thought, and it was intended for New Yorkers. It was intended with people with a substantial amount of time as residents, okay? And we don't have that now. Our mayor, if he brought that to the city council right now to have our sanctuary city status turned over, the city council I exist in would never okay it. Now the governor, she has executive power. She can execute the power of the pen. We've all heard that expression, power of the pen. She could stop this. The other thing the governor has done, which she has declared a state of emergency back in May. The difference here is that when you file for a state of emergency, what happens is the president of the United States has got to recognize the state's state of emergency. New York State state of emergency needed to be recognized by the Biden administration in order for us, here we go again, to get money. To get money. That's it. Not to stop it, but to get more money. But the Biden administration has not recognized that either. So it's failure all the way around.
Do you think money is fixing this problem? Because this is what Mayor Adams said. For each family seeking asylum through the city's care, we spend an average of $383 per night to provide shelter, food, medical care, and social services. With more than 57,300 individuals currently in our care, on an average night, it amounts to $9.8 million a day, almost $300 million a month, and nearly $3.6 billion a year. So does it seem like it's throwing money at a problem that you're saying is not getting fixed and is unsustainable?
It is an absolute waste of money. I've said it again. He's talking about, what number did you say, $9 million a day?
$9.8 million a day. That's, I'm quoting Eric Adams.
9.8, try to figure this out. Wrap your head, if we could, around $9.8 million a day for people who have crossed the border illegally. This is illegal. They did not come in the right way. These are illegal immigrants coming in that we, the hardworking people of this state, no matter where you come from, you're here legally. You're footing the bill. This is wrong. Absolutely wrong. And like I said to you earlier, this has become a bottomless pit, and there's no end in sight. It's time to cut it off. That's the only thing that's going to work here. You know, when they come from these other countries, this is heaven. This is heaven. Even if they're sleeping in a cot in a park or somebody's backyard or front steps, that's inhumane. But they're happy with it because it's better than where they come from. You know, I think not. And you know, they're quick to blame the border states, Texas and the other border states. Imagine they've been putting up with this for years and years and years. And now we're getting a taste of it with 107,000. That's like a shot glass over Niagara Falls. It's time to close the border, Brittany. It's time to close the border. And if we're not going to close the border, which we know Biden has no intentions of doing that, then it's time for the individual states to say no more. We're back to that again.
I was talking to Assembly Member Jamie Williams just yesterday, and she said, she's a Democrat, and she said we need to secure the border. And I asked her, when you say secure the border, that means something different really to everyone. What does that mean? So, Councilwoman, when you're saying secure the border, what's that mean?
That means keep the wall up with a door in it. Welcoming people, but welcoming people the right way. Controlling how many people come in every day. You know, many years ago, they used to have what's called an immigration moratorium. When an influx of X amount of people came into this country, no matter where they came from, they had to take a hiatus, a breather is what it's, you know, a moratorium is like a breather, where you could actually figure out what's going on, how many people came in, how many people and where they went, keep track of, are they with a family member, are the kids going to school, did they get a job, did they file for citizenship. Now it's willy-nilly. It's whatever happens, happens. Secure the border, that's a very broad way of looking at it. Well, of course we should secure the border. How do you secure the border? We know that it wasn't working prior to Trump coming in. When Trump came in, he built a wall. He wasn't saying stay out. He was saying come in the right way. And that's what I'm saying. Come in the right way. People romanticize Ellis Island. Well, we all came here. We're all a nation of immigrants. Well, sure, we certainly are. And we're proud of that. That's what built America. We built America. The immigrants built America. Who else was here to do it? So whether you came by boat back in the day, when you got to Ellis Island, what happened at Ellis Island? You were put into pens. People were separated. They were separated if they had an earache. They were separated if they had a bad cold. They had any kind of thing, anything that was wrong with them. They had to be sponsored by a family member. They had to go to work. Nothing was handed to them for free. And if you were sick, if you so much as had an earache or a sore throat or a cold that they couldn't cure in X amount of time, guess what happened to you? You went on a boat and you had to go back home. Now they're talking about COVID. They're talking about COVID here again. Look at what we're letting in over the border with no checks, no medical exams, no nothing. We got almost 20,000 kids entering our New York City school system in 10 days. 20,000, close to 20,000 kids. And they're talking about COVID. These kids aren't checked for anything. Yet our kids, our parents, our school teachers, our first responders, our police officers, our firemen, everybody was either fired from their job if they did not get the shot, or they took early retirement. So now, what are we going to do with the upswing of COVID? We're seeing an uptick. They're already warning people about an uptick in COVID. So how are we going to handle this immigration crisis that we've got, humanitarian crisis that we've got, if we cannot even go over and check people for the different diseases that they could be bringing into this country? There's no real vetting of any kind. When I was asked when we put the shelter in, they put the shelter in, the anchor in Bayside. Now a shelter, let me tell you this. A shelter is very different from a respite center. In a shelter, you know how many people you have exact. You know names. You know where they're going. You know when they're coming home. They sign in, they sign out. They have a curfew. They have wands that they are gone over with to make sure they're not carrying any sort of weapons. In a respite center, it's a free-for-all. People come, people go. They're not checked. They have no idea what so-and-so's name is. They have no idea if so-and-so's coming back that night. We have people coming in, people going out. There's no checks if they're carrying any kind of weapons on them. We have no idea what's going on. None. But a shelter, they keep track.
I've talked to Republicans and Democrats alike on this issue, from members of Congress, senators, city council members, and everyone has said, regardless of party, this is a problem and this is a humanitarian crisis. Everyone can agree on that. So my question to you would be, how do Democrats and Republicans then have a productive conversation on this? Because for years, when you bring up the border, it's really a lightning rod issue.
Very good, Brittany. That's a tough question, because when I speak to my colleagues in council, because there's only six Republicans, and 2 Democrats, that we formed what's called a common sense caucus. And when you talk to them, we will agree that too much money is being spent, but we have to do this. This is what you hear out of their mouths. We have to do this. We cannot turn them away. This is inhumane to take. This is New York. This is the United States of America. They are entitled to be here. Well, hell yeah. Like I told you before, we are built on a nation of immigrants. That's what built this country. But they're not coming in the right way. How do we make this conversation constructive? by setting a moratorium. How about we do that for starters? How about we say, let's call it stop for now. Let's regroup. Let's sit down at a table. Let's figure out how we're going to manage the 107,000 that are here now. 57,000 of them have a place to sleep at night. But what are we doing with the others? We know 20,000 are coming into our schools. It's time to take a moratorium, a breather. It's time to say, I think the middle ground would be let's stop for now. Let's stop for now so that we could breathe and figure out what to do. And maybe go upstate and find some counties upstate that might have work for these people. But here we go back to the work situation. I'm double thinking the work situation because that is the pathway to voting. And all they will require is a 30-day residency. 30 days, that's 1 month. They can't speak the language. They don't know our laws. They don't know anything about us. And they're going to be able to vote in an election? What's wrong with this picture, Brittany? You have to be an American citizen to vote in an election. It's your God-given right as an American to vote, and become a citizen is a privilege. And we're going to give them a privilege such as voting and determining the path of the direction that this state, this city, this government is going to take to a person who's only lived here for 30 days? That's lunacy. Lunacy at its finest.
My final question to you would be, if you could deliver a message to President Biden about this situation, about what you're seeing in your district, what would that message be?
Joe, wake up, close the border. Take a moratorium. Stop, cease the incoming of these illegal immigrants. You're not doing it right, Joe. You're doing it wrong. That would be my message to Joe Biden after I told him to wake up.
Councilwoman, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your insights, and as this situation does develop, I hope you join me again. Councilwoman Vickie Paladino, thank you for joining me.